I'm excited to talk about why we need another L2. So you start thinking, okay, like what are we going to do differently? Are we just going to be the same, deploying a version of Aave and a version of Uniswap? And I would say that we have very, very few product-focused L2s. All the other L2s that are major ones, they're tech-focused. Amazing developers coming up with great technology. At Mantle, we're kind of like, okay, we're going to pick whoever does the best job and we'll partner with them and use their tech, but we will actually focus on the end user and what products are they actually going to be wanting to use.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Edge Podcast. I'm DeFi Dad here with Nomadic from 4RC. Today's show covers one of the most product-focused Ethereum L2s, Mantle. In this episode, we'll interview Chief Alchemist Jordi Alexander about all things Mantle, how to play the upcoming airdrop season, and why it's likely to be a magnet for DeFi users with their native yield products such as mUSD, backed by Ondo's USDY token earning US Treasury bill yield, as well as their METH liquid staking token offering 2x the average ETH staking yield. But before we do, just a quick word from our sponsors who make the Edge Podcast possible. For most of us, our crypto journey started with MetaMask, and now with MetaMask Portfolio, we can do so much more. MetaMask Portfolio puts you in control. Use the dashboard to see all your assets and balances across your wallets in one place. The buy feature allows us to buy crypto assets effortlessly with fiat options such as PayPal or credit card. The swap feature allows us to swap any tokens anytime by finding a selection of available rates. The bridge feature allows us to bridge between networks, including Ethereum L1s and L2s, based on the best price and fastest delivery time. And with the stake feature, anyone in a few clicks can stake ETH and earn rewards. Do more in Web3 your way with a safe, simple, and convenient tool that's all in one place. Track and manage your Web3 everything at metamask.io/portfolio. Mike, before we get back to the show, can you explain what is liquid restaking?
Everybody at this point is familiar with liquid staking. It lets you take your staked ETH, mint a liquid staking token, and then use that token in DeFi. Well, the hottest thing in staking right now is restaking. It's the ability to reuse your staked ETH to provide Ethereum's trust layer to other services that want to benefit from it. Services like data availability layers, Oracle networks, other blockchains, and beyond. The benefit of restaking is that you get to earn additional staking rewards on top of your normal staking rewards. Well, currently, if you want to restake your ETH, your only option is to lock up your ETH. The reason that's a problem is because you can't use your restaked ETH in DeFi. We are launching ETH, the ETHER.FI liquid restaking token, because with liquid restaking, users get the benefit of staking rewards, restaking rewards, and they get to collect loyalty points for ETHER.FI and EigenLayer through this token. So it's the easiest way to get exposure to two up-and-coming early protocols, and on top of that, get all the benefits of staking and restaking.
To learn more about ETH liquid staking and liquid restaking, go to ETHER.FI.
It all started so simply with CryptoKitties and Maker on Ethereum, but quickly became complex with more applications and many chains. Today, everyone agrees UX issues are the biggest blocker standing in the way of crypto adoption. Introducing AVOCADO. Multi-chain UX redesigned from the ground up. The first wallet to abstract networks, accounts, and gas. One gas tank to pay transaction fees on all chains in USDC. And native access to INSTADAPP's powerful, custom DeFi strategies. AVOCADO, one wallet to rule all chains.
Let's introduce Jordi Alexander, the Chief Alchemist at Mantle. In addition to his work at Mantle, Jordi is the Chief Investment Officer at Selini Capital, and he is co-host of the Steady Lads podcast. Jordi is a former professional poker player turned macro trader turned crypto trader. He competes in the Mind Sports Olympiad and is an expert in games and game theory in general. Jordi, welcome to the Edge Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. Excited to be here.
Excited to finally meet you. We were just discussing the fact you're recording a Steady Lads podcast in a bit, and I would encourage anyone listening to the Edge Podcast that you should check out the Steady Lads podcast. You guys have just like a great sort of camaraderie among the co-hosts.
We have a lot of fun with it. It's just really good time, and I think we still managed to get some good takes in there, even though it's kind of for fun.
Absolutely, yeah. And we've rented you for the day here to improve the the banter here on the Edge podcast. Part of our goal here today is to give folks a pretty comprehensive overview of why Mantle. There's a lot of L2s, and if you're even more of an advanced DeFi user in this space, I think all of us find ourselves asking, like, why do I use Mantle? Why do I hop over to something like an Optimism? What are some of the advantages to using something like Mantle? How is Mantle, intending to grow its DeFi ecosystem and Web3 ecosystem? So as Chief Alchemist, just grateful to kind of get your view on all of this. So Jordi, do you want to share anything more, though, about like maybe your background and like how you ended up in crypto in the first place?
I mean, a little bit. I can give you a quick rundown that I used to live in San Francisco, and that was probably one of the first places to pick up any new technology. So some of my friends were the first people to run crypto hedge funds, back in like 2015, 16, when it was mainly buying Bitcoin and, a couple of things. And so I've been around it a long time. I've been investing around 2020 when COVID happened and they started printing money all over the place. I started thinking from first principles. It was like, okay, this system right now with Powell and everything that's going on, I guess it was Yellen at the time, it's not working. And kind of led me deeper and deeper into alternative financial constructs. And, you start getting into Bitcoin and then Ethereum because you want the programmability. And, from there, you kind of start exploring. So that's how I got into the space. I am the CIO of Selini Capital, which is a kind of crypto-focused trading firm and market maker. I was doing that in a previous life in TradFi, so I did that for 10 years in traditional markets, and now the last 3-4 years in crypto.
Hey, quick question about like the way you thought when you first got into crypto versus how you think now. Can you recall maybe any like initial impressions or thoughts that you have only like grown in terms of your conviction? Like if there was like, one takeaway, from all your time in crypto now, like what are you feeling more confident than ever in as we're like coming to, the end of 2023?
Yeah, I feel more confident than ever that the broader world, normies, institutions will start looking for, this like alternative store of value, for example. So when I first got into crypto, I was looking at it as a trading because I was a trader. I was like, oh, I can buy this cheap, it'll go up. I was buying Litecoin as soon as it listed on Coinbase because I'm like, oh, this is the cheap one. People are going to think that they can get, 50 coins instead of like, 1 coin. So this will go up a lot. And it did. I mean, it went up to $350. I still remember the day when I woke up that morning and I couldn't believe like it had just exploded and I sold everything. So that was like the trader mentality, right? And then over time, I did start believing that, okay, there's enough of a social consensus, first around Bitcoin and, at some point Ethereum started to gather that consensus. And I look at everything from a first principles perspective. And when we get into Mantle, I'd love to kind of, break down something like that, like Mantle from fundamental perspective, because the thing I hate about crypto, and I love most things about it, but the thing I really hate is, it starts to get really complicated. People use crazy words and abstractions, and you kind of lose track of like, what are we actually talking about? Like, is this something that's needed, or is this just a scam? And people start to conflate the two. So I really like breaking things down into the basics and the building blocks.
I'm kind of amazed that you came into the space and immediately like left curved or right curved with Litecoin, like right off the hop. Like that's just pure brilliance. I've still been stuck in the mid curve ever since 2017. So Jordi, before we like dive further into Mantle, I like something that struck me right off the hop was just your title, Chief Alchemist. Can you like describe your role with the team and what that title means or entails?
Yeah, it's a title that I love because it can mean everything and nothing at the same time. It sort of means that I'm trying to, create some magic, and ultimately that's kind of how I look at my role. I'm very product focused, and I want users to have a good user experience. So whatever I need to do, that month, that week, if it's onboard some amazing founders that can build some stuff, if it's coming up with things like mETH, which we'll get into, like these building blocks that I want to create so that the ecosystem can build, doing podcasts like this, so I can talk to people and actually put the message out. So it's a very broad role, and I would say that every week, every month, I'm focusing on a different part of the experience. So anything that's not like pure core dev related, strategy, everything else, that's kind of what the role entails.
Jordi, before we do start to talk more about Mantle, I guess how has that role changed with Mantle, adopting a DAO structure versus whatever you call that state before the DAO has stood up? Maybe even you could talk a bit about the origins of BitDAO. Maybe that'll start to lead us then into the origins here of Mantle.
Yeah, the origin, like you mentioned, so it was BitDAO originally sort of attached to Bybit as a semi-independent entity where it was getting some revenue from Bybit, sort of like you would with like a BNB token or this type of thing, but ultimately trying to use it and use that treasury. And at the time, it was doing more investments. It was more of like an investment DAO. It was sort of seeding different things, and that didn't work great because we saw what happened with like things like Three Arrows and like all these things blowing up. And ultimately, the idea of an investment DAO doesn't fully work. You need like an investment committee and like all these things. So instead, once they took all the learnings from that cycle, they pivoted to being a product-focused DAO, because ultimately that's what makes sense is delivering good products, having the DAO support the products and the treasury back them. That makes a lot more sense. So Mantle kind of grew out of this focus, and Mantle's first product, which is the layer 2, it's not the only product, as we'll get into. Like mETH is now like a whole new product. The idea is to create products that people want to use, and then the DAO is actually able to vote on things that make sense for those products.
Can you also give us a quick history lesson on like how does BitDAO ultimately go from BitDAO to Mantle, and like there's like a token transfer at some point or like a migration at some point. So can you just give us kind of like the highlights reel of how we got to now?
Yeah. So when this thing happened, like this sort of focus from investment to actual building and product, there was a desire to just completely rebrand. So go from BitDAO to Mantle. Mantle is like the second layer of the earth, so it kind of made sense as a layer 2 to take that name. And the token was sort of converted from the old Bit token, which was a great name. Like, honestly, it was painful. A lot of people did not want to release that back. Like, once you have that claim on Bit, it's such a great token name. But the desire to kind of have a fresh start and really focus on product was so large that, we converted the token. We also upgraded the contract, so it's much more modern and more flexible contract than the original Bit, smart contract for that token. So it all kind of came together, and we did this before the launch of mainnet. This was done earlier this year.
Let's get a bit more into Mantle. I think one of the first questions I think of when discussing a new L2 is, why do we need another L2? Why don't we start there? And would love to hear the approach that Mantle's taking to kind of differentiate and somehow draw that attention and users into the market.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of people build chains, right? Like even BNB, was a kind of a Geth fork, and at the time that we started thinking about Mantle, it was already clear that most of the liquidity and the activity, like financially, is happening on Ethereum. That's sort of like the safe place that people are using. And so as an L2, you're part of that ecosystem. You can tie into the sort of like the safe bridging to mainnet Ethereum and have that security. And that seemed to be the approach to take. So, it's first the decision to build a chain. And like I said, if you're going to be a product focused DAO, the chain is the first, like you're in the blockchain industry. Like you want a chain. Once you're going to have a chain, then do you want to do like a random kind of chain somewhere else, or do you want to just build on Ethereum, which has this like huge mindshare and security? So that was the second decision: build on Ethereum, make a layer 2 there. Third point: how do you differentiate? How is it actually going to be different than at the time there weren't many. Now there's like 100. But you were looking at Arbitrum, Optimism. They were kind of like the two that were live, really, and functioning. So you start thinking, okay, like, what are we going to do differently? Are we just going to be the same, deploying a version of Aave and a version of Uniswap, and it'll just be another same block space? It'll just be more block space. We've taken a very different approach, and I think I'm excited to talk about why we need another L2. I would say that we have very, very few product-focused L2s. I think there's only one, to be honest, apart from Mantle, which is Base. And I think Base is great. It's maybe focused on like the US side a lot, and Mantle is more international, focusing globally. That's one key difference. Both of them have a centralized exchange that's very large, like a top 3, top 5 centralized exchange, and you need that to kind of have the funnel of new users and educating people, and also for bridging, make it easy to bridge money. That's what Solana used to have with FTX. They had that sort of like bridge, and that was important for them getting to kind of where they were initially. I would say that all the other L2s that are major ones, so ZK Sync, Arbitrum, all these ones, Scroll, all of them, they're tech focused. They're thinking like, how do we do a good proving? How do we get a good, ZK solution, and amazing developers coming up with great technology. At Mantle, we're kind of like, okay, we're going to pick whoever does the best job and, participate in their tech, use their prover or whatever, we'll partner with them and use their tech, but we will actually focus on the end user and what products are they actually going to be wanting to use. So build the safest app environment, have, a lot of liquidity, a lot of support, make sure that the user experience is coming first instead of, worrying about, how are we going to out execute, ZK Sync on some tech.
That's a great point. I love the way you frame that. It makes a lot of sense. I've honestly never thought of it that way, but yeah, Optimism, Arbitrum, ZK Sync, Starknet, they're all thinking, I think, first about the technology. And like, to your point, I think we all respect that. We're grateful for that. I think it's some really challenging work, but I'm definitely understanding, this sort of approach that Mantle and Base also stands out as looking to focus more on products. I guess anything else to share there around like maybe what advantages that might afford Mantle in the future? I know it's still very early. So like if you're looking at the Mantle ecosystem, which we'll kind of run through the highlights here later with Jordi, but it's early still. There's only so many apps. There's only so much liquidity. But anyways, what sort of advantages do you think will be afforded to Mantle through this?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the space for a little bit of time, and I've talked to the apps that have been deploying on all the other ones, Arbitrum, Optimism, all these things. They don't really have the partnership and the business development focus that these apps really need to succeed. And so if your whole strategy is to actually focus on these things, then you start to outcompete when it comes to actually getting the apps. And like you said, I agree with you. Like, I love that everyone is working on this tech. Someone is going to win that game, and they will have the best version of, like layer 2 tech, like a roll-up technology. And there will be a prize for that. So if you manage, as an investor to bet on the right one, and that one, whether it's Polygon's solution or, ZK Syncs or Arbitrums, if that ends up being the de facto one, that will do great as an investment. But I would say we're playing a different game. We're really focusing on the best user experience, and the reason why people will come to Mantle is not because the tech is like the latest and greatest, even though we will be obviously heavily using what these guys are doing. So Mantle is using some OP code as like the starting point. It has taken the modular approach. So it was the first one to kind of hop onto what's now become like the EigenDA and the EigenLayer train. A lot of people have hopped on since we've seen, but Mantle was kind of early to adopt that technology. Ultimately, the reason for that was part of the product focus and the user focus is making it cheap to transact. You want to have good fees so that people are not having bad user experience. So having the DA modular, not using mainnet for DA, some people will argue this is not a pure layer 2, this is it's not the purest form because you're using external DA, but I think people are coming around that this is actually the best solution. We're seeing Celestia, we're seeing EigenLayer, kind of multiple solutions gain a lot of traction. And it's all for the user. We just want it to be cheap for fees. Nobody wants to spend. I remember doing like NFT mints, you try to do a transaction, spend like $400 for a transaction. It was not fun.
Actually, on the like EigenDA, Celestia front, for folks that are totally unfamiliar with this like conversation and this like choice that L2s can make, can you dumb that down for just a moment? Like what goes into the decision to use EigenDA or Celestia or the choices that other L2s are making?
Yeah, I think both of them are going to be used. Both of them are good options. As being a very early partner to EigenLayer, Mantle's quite committed to that partnership. I think we're even looking at things like restaking with them. I think they don't have a token yet, so people are, right now more looking at Celestia, which is doing extremely well, obviously. But that's just sort of a short-term attention. I think the technology on the EigenLayer side is at least equivalent.
Some of the stuff you were talking about, just like this technical focus versus product focus. I feel like there's so many people out there like with this almost like lost in the sauce on the technical side of things. You can go so deep into the weeds in that, and I'm thankful. But I think your approach is quite refreshing, and I can start to see kind of the vision of having somebody like you in this role to kind of think like a user, having that experience and knowing what you want and what I guess a DeFi power user might want is, I think, really important. And I think on that note, I think I'd love to kind of start to talk about some of the dApps that have been onboarded now, and then some of the ones that you are really excited for to come.
Yeah, so as a user, what I care about number one is security. It's different if I'm like playing around with $100. I'm just gonna like punt it and same as going to the casino and putting it all on 22 or something. If I'm actually like using a good chunk of my like life savings and I'm having it on chain, I really don't want to get rugged. Like this is like number one. So from a user perspective, even above the cheap fees and everything else, what I really, really want is the safety, right? Safety is like number one. So it comes in multiple facets. I would say that the centralization, decentralization, the sequencer, all these things are even secondary. Number one is like, don't lose your money, don't lose my money, basically. And it starts even from the apps. So we saw like Base, they had some guy develop a bold smart contract, and then some crazy trading happened, and then you just like pulled the liquidity out, and all this kind of things were happening.
I thought that was the future of France. I really thought that was it.
That future of France was bald. And then I think, one of their native dexes had some issue and had a hack right away as well. You have not heard of any security issues with Mantle, and you haven't heard of any rugs with Mantle. And part of that is, when I joined the team, I made it clear to them that I think one way to differentiate is make a safe environment for users and have a reputation for this like safety and not having apps that are rugging and things like this. So look, it's decentralized. It is decentralized. Anybody can come and deploy if they want to. However, I've taken this approach of showcasing, and we have a showcasing app category. And we want to tell users, look, you can use anything on Mantle or anywhere, in DeFi in general. But these teams, we have vetted them. They've doxed themselves to us. They don't have to dox publicly. That's a whole other, decision that they can make it or not make. But we have done like due diligence. These are properly like VC-backed teams and people that we've met and talked to, and they have the expertise to, get audits and take security seriously. So use anything you want, but at least, know that these ones are safe. From, we talked about, pre-show as well, Curve got hacked. Nobody expected that. And that team is top notch. Sometimes things get in that you could never expect, but at least no one is consciously like trying to rug a project. That's a different thing that we can do something about.
Yeah, there's a lot of shades of gray when thinking about which applications you're going to use. And so some of the guesswork can be solved for by really, putting your trust in some sort of like authority like the core team at Mantle. That said, someone could rip apart everything I just said and, talk about the fact that like, well, what's the point of this if we're going to just stand up entities all over again where we're having to trust something that's, centralized. But you have to, my takeaway from this is you have to respect people's freedom or choices to do what they want. Like not everyone wants to be able to manage their LP positions like I do in Curve. Like I want that full control, but I also have been like full-time in crypto for 7-8+ years and, work full-time in the space. There are folks who are brand new who are going to want an easy self-custody wallet to use on like Mantle or Base. There could be a custodied wallet that becomes very popular with DeFi applications. And so again, someone who's been around longer could say, hey, like you're making a mistake, like you're putting your trust in these folks to control your wallet. But again, I assume like let adults weigh the pros and cons themselves, make their own decisions. If I'm forcing them to have to use the most like self-custodied version of a product, like I'm honestly just as bad then as like the folks that are forcing KYC down your throat. So, that optionality is really important. And I do think that we as like a DeFi crypto, ecosystem, like we continue to mature in this. Like every cycle we swing back and forth. The pendulum goes back and forth between these extremes of different opinions.
Yeah, I mean, you've been in the space a long time. You're DeFi dad. You're comfortable in the dark forest, right? Like most people in the dark forest, if you drop something by mistake, like it's this, like you're not going to pick it up. It's already gone. So, having a little bit of support on the security side, and incrementally getting to decentralization as you go on, I think is a very practical approach.
Jordi, I want to talk a little bit more about some of the dApps that are live now. And then maybe some that you're excited about that are coming, if you can share.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's Mantle season right now. We were starting getting all the apps that have been building for months. They're just coming online now. So these like showcase apps that I mentioned that we've carefully like chosen, pre-vetted, they're very VC quality apps. One by one in the last week or two, they've all been starting to announce. So we have Init Capital. So Init is a intent-based DeFi app that will be in the borrowing lending category. And I think it's taken what like Uniswap before has started to do with hooks. You have like different hooks, and it's bringing that exact mindset to borrowing and lending. And it's like a total world-class team. I think they're going to be announcing more details, but it's one that's started to announce, and I'm very excited about that one. Another one is like a DEX called Butter. So Butter, very, very strong team. They take a more kind of a gamified approach to DEX, and I think there will be some like long tail stuff happening for fun as well. But Butter is one that on the trading side I like a lot. Then another one on the trading side, a bit more kind of blue chip, I would say, is Merchant Mo. So you're familiar with Trader Joe. So we wanted to make an equivalent version. So the team has been building Merchant Mo as it's like a win-win, and this is kind of like the cool thing. It's a separate token, so it's not actually Trader Joe copy paste. It has its own team, but it's built from the same core, and 10% of the tokens will go to Joe users, so they get this like amazing extra airdrop, and Mantle gets a very established team that's done it very well and has great community.
I can't get over that name. As a guy who loves dad jokes, as a dad, like Merchant Mo really hits. So kudos to that.
Wait, sorry guys, did Merchant Mo, is that like the new brand for Trader Joe because of the lawsuit that happened, or is this just them moving to a new brand because of the fact they're building on Mantle?
Yeah, it's because of Mantle. I think the lawsuit came in the middle of them building, and it's different enough that nobody can no. I don't know that there's a Merchant Mo supermarket chain, so I think we're safe on that side.
Hey, if you want to go to a grocery store and spend hours trying to park and find yourself in the world's like tiniest, most crowded like group of annoying people fighting over like the most like overpriced food, go to Trader Joe's. But if you want to trade with cutting edge DeFi, go to Trader Joe's and now Merchant Mo's. So yeah, I love it. Trader Joe will always be a DeFi app for me. It will never be a crowded grocery store.
If you like dad jokes, Nomadic, I have one more app I want to talk about, and it's another one that it's not live yet. It's in audits right now, so it'll probably be around Christmas Day. But we have the Mantle ETH lending and borrowing, also known as the METH Lab. If you look at those initials, and the METH Lab is going to be fantastic. I'm extremely excited about it. The team has done an amazing job. So it's going to be a bit of a new DeFi primitive. People are not going to be used to this one, and I think they're going to enjoy playing around with it. It'll give you the opportunity to borrow if you want against your token, like your METH. You can borrow coins against it. And the reason it's completely different than all the existing ones is, and I've helped design this, so I'm quite like talking my own book here just for transparency. The design is mine, but I've taken a reverse approach. So instead of figuring out the yield later, I start with the yield. I'm like, how much yield do you want? Do you want to go 20% or do you want to go full degen? Do you want to go 60%? Tell me how much yield you want. Once you tell me how much yield you want, I'll tell you what you need to do. If you want to go 20%, then all you need to do is put your dollars, and you can basically backstop METH at, let's say, like $1,500. So if somebody doesn't pay you back, because we're talking about like a non-liquidation borrowing. I don't know if you guys have, it's different than Aave. There's no liquidation. So it's very safe. You don't need oracles for this stuff. All I'm saying is, you go to the pawn shop, you put your METH, and I'll give you $1,500. If you don't come back in a month, I'm keeping it. So I'm taking a risk. Like maybe you won't show up and I have to buy it for $1,500, but that's quite a low price. I'm happy. Like even if the price scam wicks to $1,400, I end up keeping this thing at $1,500. I'm okay with it, and I'm getting 20% yield. But if I'm degen and I want the 60% yield, I will have to bid higher and higher, and maybe I need to bid 2,000, and maybe I will end up underwater on my METH. So it'll be fun. People will kind of bid and try to get the highest fills. And watch out for that one.
It sounds a little like some of what we enjoyed, Nomadic and Time Swap. That idea of not using an oracle, it's really clever. I think it hasn't played out yet, so that's exciting to hear that you all as Mantle are pressing on that. Like that's a use case that should be more popular, but for whatever reason, with shared lending type protocols like Aave, like I think the assumption, the like default standard has become that. But really, like as you pointed out, there's some huge opportunity, especially if the markets get as volatile as they do in a bull run. So that's exciting.
No, it's very similar to what you said in terms of some of the mechanics. So Time Swap does have like a non-liquidation mechanic, which is great, and I am very supportive of this mechanic. But this is like a product that's focused at the user, and it's looking at like the end goal. People want yield. and all you have to decide is how much yield do you want, and you go from there. So it's reversed the whole thing, and I'm thinking that this will be a better product market fit, and it'll kind of break more into mainstream this way.
Yeah, I like how you give them kind of that optionality to kind of be in control of their own destiny, assuming that they know, the risks to that that leverage that they can take on. It's really interesting.
And it would be a shame if this Meth Lab product were to ever use Breaking Bad memes in the future. That would be such a so disrespectful to the sanctity of what you're building.
Yeah, I can't endorse copyright infringement. So
yeah. Jordi, sorry. So that is called the Meth Lab. That's the product is that a product that's being built by the, let's call it the core Mantle team, or would it be a separate protocol?
This is one of the showcase apps. So it's one of the strong teams that has a lot of experience that we're working with that's building this.
Really interesting. Oh, we'll definitely have to have them on in the future. Have you come back and show us that. When do you think that will go live?
So I think it'll be like a Christmas, New Year's kind of gift for the community. And
what a great Christmas gift, the Meth Lab on Christmas.
Yes. I would love to talk about meth, because this is like the most exciting kind of piece of the puzzle, I would say. It's such a great building block for all the apps to use. And it's something that's just gone live just, literally a couple days ago.
Actually, let's do that. Let's talk about, there is another distinction to make with Mantle, that there's been this focus on native yields. And so, we're obviously joking here using this term meth. It is actually the term for this mETH. So if you're reading this in the future, it's like little m and then ETH. I want to call it a liquid staked version of ETH. So anyways, can you kind of walk us through what is this mETH or meth? What are some of the advantages or differentiators to it?
Yeah, I mean, DeFi data listeners probably understand, the concept of a liquid staking protocol. Like Lido is the largest by TVL by far in all of DeFi, right? So 20 plus billion of basically Ethereum that, has been staked, and then you get a receipt token that you can actually use in DeFi. You can take it around and use it the same way you would, hopefully use ETH. So Meth is very much like that. It's a liquid staking protocol. We have very strong, experienced team of Lido caliber that has built it over many months, and it's gone many audits. We are comfortable enough with it that we have been putting so far many tens of thousands of Ethereum from the treasury into it. So we're putting our money where our mouth is, and that this has gone through a proper process. And people talk about Lido having 33% of the staked Ethereum, and it's too high. Rocket Pool has a good chunk, and that's good. There hasn't really been like a number 3, and we're really targeting that number 3 spot. We want to give users more options, and I think we're gonna have a very compelling use case for Meth. So there will be a reason for people to either switch over from their staked ETH, or just for the first time decide, okay, this is meaningful enough that I do want to start staking my ETH instead of just leaving it in ETH. And there's 2 kind of prongs on our strategy. One is yield. We want to offer the highest yield of everybody else, and we will make sure of that. So we're just announcing now the double yield drive. So the double dose, get double dose of meth for the first 250,000 ETH, which is a lot of ETH. That's, what is that now? It's like over 500 million worth of ETH. We'll be getting double yield. So for the next months, instead of 3.6 yield, you're getting 7.2. We are paying that natively in ETH. So this is not some pool 2, you're getting more yield because it's in a different token. It is literally ETH yield. You're getting double yield natively into the app in like a very, kind of the same way as you're getting the 3.6. That is basically being funded by the yield that the treasury is generating. So people who are watching are not familiar. The Mantle treasury it's a large treasury. It has over 270,000 ETH in its treasury. So we are staking that and then passing the yield on to the users, the stakers. So they will be getting this double yield. Very excited about that.
That's a standout yield. Like if you can earn double, I mean, you can't earn double anywhere unless you become an LP or, in the future, I'm sure there will be other opportunities too with restaking through EigenLayer, which really like, as long as that treasury is that enormous, you could just pivot the strategy to using some restaking to like further bump it.
Yeah, no, we're very focused on making sure the yield's always going to be the highest of all the competitors, and we are first in line for restaking. Obviously, we have the partnership with EigenLayer anyway. We're also looking at MEV as being another source. Multi-block MEV, anything that you can really do with a ton of ETH that's staked. So we will be trying to always have the highest yield. Yeah.
I want to just kind of linger on the treasury point a bit more, because it's kind of coming clear how important and like almost like how much of a tool Mantle can wield this to be part of that like user acquisition funnel and like utilize it to kind of almost like affect the outcomes of what you want and like how you want people to navigate to the platform. So maybe just like touch on that a little bit more, because it seems like a pretty amazing again tool to have behind you if you use it wisely and correctly, which it sounds like that is totally part of the strategy. So maybe just key in on that a little bit more, Jordi, if you can.
Yeah, I mean, let's be transparent. I mean, it's a huge treasury. There is $1 billion just in ETH and dollars. I mean, we talked about how much ETH there is, and with the price of ETH going up, even that's going up. There are several hundred million of stable coins as well. So that's a chest. We also have a lot of other tokens and MNT tokens and things that we can use to incentivize as well. But that gives people like me the ability to bring ideas into fruition. I'm like you guys. I love this stuff. I love learning about it, thinking about it, coming up with concepts. But then, unless you have a massive amount of like this idea of meth, right? Like, this is something that I came up with early on, but it's only possible because there is hundreds of thousands of ETH that is in the treasury that can really bootstrap this thing and create that double yield that we want, create the, that initial bootstrapping where it all makes sense. So it's a powerful weapon, like you said, to yield it. And we're going to be yielding it into the DeFi apps as well. We've seen how much hoops people have gone through with Olympus DAO and then Tokamak and all these things where they need liquidity and they're trying to figure out some, risky ways to actually give apps liquidity. For us, it's not that complicated. We have the liquidity here. If you're a showcase app, we will be putting 8 figures into you, period. Like that's kind of part of the part and parcel of becoming a showcase app on Mantle. So that's pretty powerful, I think. And builders have realized that, and it's kind of brought in some of the world-class teams because they want to be kind of, incentivized in that way where they know that they don't have to go from 0 to 1.
I hadn't even thought of it just on like the builder founder side, but I mean, that makes total sense. Like that's such a draw if they come in and they know they have that kind of Mantle support and backing. Like, of course, why wouldn't you go start building there? That kind of brings up, I was reading through one of the blogs and it looks like Mantle's got a partnership of some sort with Ondo Finance. Can you maybe like walk us through how the USDY product and the MUSD is working out on Mantle? Because that also looks like, again, another like compelling source of native yield.
Absolutely. I mean, when you've been a DeFi like a heavy user for a long time, you go through this like first principles, and we'll get back to kind of what we talked about in the introduction of the first principles. And I look at like, what do I want from an L2? What do I want, as the ideal environment? And I want safety, security, we talked about, but I also want native building blocks that give me yield in which I can stack and get more and more. And we talked about the staked ETH. That's very sustainable yield. That's paid out in ETH from the, the code, really. So that's good. But I also want a stable coin that will also pay me treasury yield. Because if Circle and Tether are getting 5% and they're not passing it on to users, I want the 5%. I don't want 2%. I want like the 5%. I want to get it all. And so we talked to a ton of like RWA options out there. We really like the approach Ondo has taken because they have, many years of experience in the space. They are very, very regulated. They're not doing things offshore and trying to hack it. They're talking to the regulators in the US, and they've kind of structured something. And we were very early to realize that what is possible now, which is you can actually have a USDC equivalent that just generates the yield, and you can use it permissionlessly in DeFi. Previously, you had to KYC to get access to this, and you still need to in order to mint. But once it's minted and it's out in the wild, anybody can, use it on Mantle and kind of put it into apps. So we have partnered with Ondo. We did like a large first tranche of putting some of the treasury funds to mint the USDY so that nobody has to do the KYC. We're doing it for them. Once we get it, we sort of put it in all the DEXs and give it out so that people can access it. We're working with Curve to come on board soon, so we can have a Curve pool, and then people just cheaply get access to USDY. And this is a great building block because if I have like a Uniswap pool of ETH USDC, now I can have METH, USDY, and I'm just getting 5% yield on both for doing the same thing. I think it's just such a superior user experience.
I have long wanted to marry the worlds of METH and U.S. Treasury bills. So thank you for doing that. With Ondo, it's just such a cool development because you all are kind of solving a bigger challenge for them, which, like, to their credit, they've gone about doing things, I think, the hard way is what I'll say. They've kind of jumped through all the hoops to provide this USDY token. But at the end of the day, USDY being that ERC20, it still has the freedom that all ERC20 tokens have. So yeah, that is just wild that you guys are sort of unlocking that for everyone. I'll use myself as an example. I wanted to use USDY. I just was like unwilling to go through the process of minting it myself.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy. You have to onboard, KYC, wait 40 days. There's like a bunch of things that have to happen for that. We've done that. We've abstracted it. We're putting more and more of the treasury into it so that we can allow more access. And just to tell users what mUSD is, because we have mETH and we also have mUSD. mUSD is, it's basically USDY. You can wrap and unwrap it into mUSD. The difference is mUSD is pegged to $1, while USDY is accumulating. So it becomes more and more valuable per coin. Well, mUSD is rebasing, which means you get more dollars. And that's more of a better user experience. It goes back to the product focus. People want to deal with dollars. And so we created mUSD. Actually, Ondo is the one that, thanks to them, they're the ones who kind of managing the mUSD, and they're doing it exclusively for Mantle. And that is a one-to-one peg dollar coin. But you can quickly unwrap and wrap. Some apps might want to use USDY because they don't want to deal with rebasing. Some apps can deal with rebasing. But ultimately, it's free to switch back and forth.
Just to clarify then, so in case folks aren't like as familiar with like stETH versus rETH as like LSTs, it sounds like MUSD is the stETH model, the Lido, stETH, however you say it model, where it's like if you have one MUSD in your wallet, you will actually have 1.000 something, by the end of the day. Like, you continue to see it tick upwards. But the USDY token, would that one would be like rETH? It just becomes more and more like expensive over time.
Becomes more and more valuable per token. So, how you have like dollars and euros, and over time one can get more powerful than the other one. I would say that these tokens, the mETH and the USDY, for example, they have a yield natively, so they become stronger over time. There's like a strengthening of the currency that happens. And you want to be part of that strengthening. Honestly, you want to be on the strong currency. So those are the assets that you want to be holding. You don't want to be holding like the non-yielding ones.
Jordi, we're starting to go over here, so we want to wrap soon. But another really interesting partnership that caught my eye is with Ethena Labs. We actually just hosted them on the podcast. Super interesting project. I personally think it's going to be huge. Can you tell us a little bit more about? I think it's like somewhat of an exclusive partnership that Mantle's crafted with Ethena. Maybe break that down a little bit for us.
Yeah, Ethena is an interesting stablecoin project that basically uses any liquidity you can find for something like perpetuals, like ETH perpetuals. So it has two sources of yield. One is the staked ETH, and the other one is the funding rates potentially from shorting and creating a stable currency between, longing the staked ETH and shorting the perpetual. The reality is, like, most of the open interest is on centralized exchanges. So, I'm glad to hear that you like it. I know it's a little bit controversial because, in essence, it's a DeFi product, but it uses centralized exchanges. However, it does not use any real world stuff. So you're still staying in the crypto world. It's just not fully DeFi. It's both DeFi and CeFi, but it is crypto native. And the reason why the collaboration there was very obvious was, first of all, you have Bybit. You have a centralized exchange that has like a huge amount of open interest. We have the mETH, so we have the highest yielding staked ETH, so they will obviously want to use that, and they've been very adamant to try to incorporate mETH and get that extra yield. And also, Bybit right now has already integrated mETH. You can use it as collateral for your trading, and so if they want to set up a position of, and anybody can do this if they want to do it through Ethena, that's great, single click. They can do it themselves if they want to execute it themselves, but you can buy, if you just want yield on your dollars, take your dollars, buy some mETH. You can put it on Bybit or some other place that will take it as collateral. We're hoping to have something on Mantle as well that will allow you to do that. But you can short ETH perpetual, create a neutral position, and you get the funding rate plus the yield. So Ethena's been very resourceful to put all those pieces together and make it easy for users.
If you're newer, you might not realize that there's a lot of perps exchanges out there, and part of the way a perps exchange works is it has this thing called a funding rate. And because our space is just, whether we're in a bull run or a bear market, funding rates tend to stay positive where they're paying shorts. So in other words, like, part of the way the exchange works is longs are paying this like fee to shorts. That fee can be enormous. And so I know Nomadic and I were kind of like, speculating that once Ethena goes live, you could see yields that are not just like 20%, but much, much higher all throughout a bull market. It comes with some drawbacks there, but I think to the point you made too, if eventually on-chain perps grows the way that we all expect it to, I do expect that more of Ethena's shorting mechanism will actually move on-chain, but there's just a limitation to it today. So yeah, really exciting stuff. Like it's a great example though of like the way that Mantle is being product focused and thinking about these like cutting edge products in DeFi and crypto and how to like apply that to a better experience. So Jordi, just to wrap up on the Ethena partnership, in the future, can you just like describe, like, as a user, I will come to Mantle and how will I approach that opportunity through Ethena? Am I going to be like buying the stable coin itself, or am I going to be like, putting up some ETH and minting the USDe token, if I'm saying that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, the simplest thing, I think, if the yields are looking as juicy as you said they might be looking, one relatively straightforward thing to do is we are going to be bootstrapping a large curve pool with mETH, ETH, and then another one with EUSD, which is the Ethena USD, and MUSD, as well as some crvUSD, just to kind of make sure we're supporting Curve as well. So they will have a lot of liquidity to be able to just get some EUSD and get the yield. They can always interact with the protocol themselves and either take dollars or take some staked ETH, and hopefully very soon they can take their METH and use that to mint EUSD. And ultimately, if you're not wanting to be fully long and you want to be just 90% long and keep some in stables, this could be like a good option.
Hey, Jordi, to clarify something else there that perked my ears up was the CrvUSD comment. So is there like a timeline for like when Curve would be live on Mantle and CrvUSD being their flagship stablecoin? Like that would be really exciting to have access to that.
Yeah, I mean, what a cool pool, right? Like we're working on a CrvUSD, ETHENA-USD, and like mUSD pool. Like this is what we've agreed with them, and I think it's going to be one of the coolest tri pools in crypto. So they're working on that right now. I think it shouldn't take them that long to deploy. They at this point have the deployment down. So I'm hoping, within the next definitely the next weeks that we'll see that live.
Dude, that's a wild pool.
Yeah.
CrvUSD, mUSD, and
that's like overpowered.
USDe.
Like, if you're a DeFi nerd, that's like way too overpowered.
Oh my gosh, that is so that is like so exciting is how I'll say it, but like I want to say like degen. Again, I'm not meaning to gloss over like there are a lot of risks that will be inherited to early adopters of Ethena's USDe and even CrvUSD as well. But what are we in this space for if we're not like trying this new stuff? And there's high risk, high reward. You got to weigh all the consequences. You got to do your research and listen to the Edge podcast, listen to Steady Lads podcast. Hopefully we can give you some objective information.
Before we go, I definitely want to talk a bit about the Mantle token, MNT. Can you just remind listeners just some of the functionality, utility for that token?
Yeah, I mean, the basic thing is that right now it is the gas token. So if you want to use the Mantle network, you're paying a little bit of gas. Like I said, we've really kind of worked to optimize the gas, but that gas is an MNT, so that gets sort of used that way. We're obviously wanting to ultimately make this token a core part of the ecosystem. So one of the things that we're working on for the next Q1, I would say, is a way to stake your MNT and get airdrops from these EcoFund tokens that we're working on, the showcase apps. This is something that I would say Atom was probably like the pioneer of this, where like any Cosmos chain would give airdrops to like Atom holders because they want to align themselves with the ecosystem, and very much like that because the showcase apps are such core partners with Mantle. To be a showcase app, it means that the EcoFund has invested in you as like a normal VC investment, and so we will be getting airdrops from every EcoFund project, and we expect that we'll have like a staking hub, like a rewards hub for holders, and we're seeing people do that right now. I think Injective and Celestia are two tokens that have exploded in price because people are now kind of playing that game. So we independently came up with the idea.
Have you announced this yet? Like this is this airdrop thing alpha that you're sharing on the Edge, or
this is alpha? There's no live announcement, but this is kind of behind the scenes. I've been seeing some of the Figmas, or they're designing the website. So this is all it's all coming.
Yeah, that strategy that you just called out, it reminds me of like Injective or just Cosmos in general, and it makes a lot of sense. So that's new information for me. Good to know about MNT. Actually, my final question for you is, how does Mantle think about competing with, the speculative nature, just like the advantages afforded to L2s that haven't launched a token yet? Like, some of these L2s, if they end up being valued the same as Mantle, I mean, we're talking about many, many billions. And so there's some huge advantage to having folks excited to trying all these apps. I think you've partially addressed that now. Like it is not, I won't say it's guaranteed, but it seems very likely that if you stake the MNT, token, you'll be very likely to earn future airdrops from the individual protocols building on Mantle. But yeah, how else do you guys strategically think about that? Like the fact that a token's already live?
Yeah, I mean, not only is it live, there is no unlocks. It's already like fully unlocked. So that was one of the large decisions. We kind of forgot to mention this when we talked about the BIT to MNT transition. But as part of that transition, we fully vested everybody immediately from day one. So you went from like having these, monthly unlocks that every like VC coin has, and you're looking at the dates. Solana has years and years of this coming. I think in March of 2025, there's going to be like an enormous unlock, for example. Mantle doesn't have any unlocks. Anybody that wanted to sell could already sell. There's nothing stopping them. All of it's already live. So that's something that me as an investor, like I don't want to worry about, large backholders that are waiting. They're just waiting for the day where they can sell. So that's an advantage, not a disadvantage. I think all those other ones that haven't launched their token yet and have, years of VC unlocks to come. Yes, you can play the airdrop game, and I think there's a lot of bots that do that, and it sort of diluted the whole airdrop game now because, ZK Sync and all these things I think have an unlimited number of Telegram bots that can just spin up, farming bots and hope to get an airdrop. So I'm not sure how much each individual airdrop will be worth there, but ultimately I think the apps themselves will start generating a lot of value, and those airdrops will be something that we will be showcasing and kind of passing on to users.
I was just talking to Nomadic the other day about this with Cosmos, and like, do we think this is all going to play out again with the likes of Celestia or Injective? And it actually makes a lot of sense that like folks that are long-term stakers, like if you can reward the time frame for which they've been staking too, I think you can eliminate some of the like Sybil type attacks that would happen. I don't even want to call it a Sybil attack. Like, I mean, a lot of folks are going to try to farm these airdrops in the bull run. It works until it doesn't. When the airdrops no longer seem like they're working, like we'll all know, like we're probably at the top of market or already past it. But we should probably wrap up here. So I want to first remind our listeners that they should learn about Mantle by going to mantle.xyz. They can follow Jordi on Twitter at Game Theorizing. Put that into the show notes. And then, of course, make sure you follow 0x Mantle. That's official Twitter account for Mantle. Also, check out 0x Steady Lads. That's the handle for the Steady Lads podcast that Jordi co-hosts. Jordi, just thank you so much for your time. I want to give you the final word then. Anything else you'd recommend, for folks that want to learn about or get involved with Mantle?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most obvious thing, get the double yield. It's literally free money that's being given out. So get some METH, start there. If you want to keep it on L1 for a while, you can just get the METH. I would say at some point you'll want to bridge it to L2 for all the additional rewards you can kind of stack on top of that. But yeah, start with the building blocks. Get some mETH, get some mUSD. Even those will generate you returns just for holding, and then you can play around from there.
Thanks so much, Jordi.
Absolutely. It's been a blast.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you're a talented founder or developer, please consider reaching out to our team at fourthrevolution.capital. And for future episodes of the Edge podcast, please check out our link tree at edge_pod.